Hey, what is up, guys? Welcome back to another MMA Breakdown podcast. We're doing it live from my new house, and hopefully it's not too echoey because I know this office is a little echoey. So hopefully the audio and everything comes out good. And you still got boxes on the floor, so we're gonna move the camera over here. See if that makes any difference. But this is the MMA Breakdown podcast. We're talking about Nate Diaz and Anderson Silva, and then Alex Gustafsson coming up versus Anthony Rumble Johnson. And Anthony Rumble Johnson is on a freaking tear as of late. In the UFC alone, he's gone 2-0, just strictly annihilating Antonio Nogueira and beating Phil Davis. And before that, he was on a 2-fight winning streak and lost. Last time he lost was to Vitor on January 14, 2012. But you got Alex Gustafsson, which has not only had one fight since the John Jones fight in 2013. He only fought once in 2014 because he thought he was going to get an automatic rematch, which I can completely understand the dude wanting an automatic rematch because he was the toughest opponent for John Jones. He is a tall fighter at 6'5" with a very long reach. And Anthony Rumble Johnson, on the other hand, isn't as tall of a fighter, but he's more ripped, more athletic. Anthony Rumble Johnson is 6'2", so they are similar size, but I think Anthony Rumble Johnson is going to have to get in close and just annihilate this dude, because if you don't know, the reach does have a play in this fight, because look at what John Jones does to fighters. It's his reach that gets people. He has this long reach like that, and people just can't get into it. Even Daniel Cormier had a problem with John Jones. So hopefully I don't see this fight doing that. I think the way that Rumble Johnson's got to fight, because I think it is a 5-round fight, has to start fast and finish fast. If he starts slow and makes it into the later rounds, I think he'll gas out. It's just the way the dude's fighting style is. I think he doesn't have that very great long-lasting battery life, pretty much like a gas tank. And Alex Gustafsson has proved multiple times that he can go at least 3 rounds consecutively, or a 5 round like he did against John Jones. So, like I said, I'm trying to move this camera around to get the best lighting possible. So bear with me, because I knew where the lighting was in my old crib, but here I'm just not sure as of yet. So sorry if you get all this shakiness. It is a low budget podcast here on my YouTube channel. So like I was saying, guys, Alex Gustafsson has the ability to just annihilate this fight in the later rounds. But if Anthony goes hard in the first round, then he will dominate that fight. But I think the reach will have a play in it. Anthony's got to use his wrestling, because that's what Phil Davis did in their fight, and Phil Davis beat him. But he is training with Phil Davis, so he is getting good training partners. And Phil Davis is going to be competing against Ryan Bader, which Ryan Bader is 19-4, and he's a good wrestler. He's very much improved. He's on a 3-fight winning streak, and the last time he lost was September 4, 2013. And Phil Davis, on the other hand, is 13-2, and his last loss was on the 26th of April of 2014, losing to Anthony Rumble Johnson, and then coming back and beating Glover Teixeira. So my thing is, these two dudes are very similar in their fighting style, very similar. I think on the ground, I would give it to Phil Davis. He's just more of a athlete that knows how to do more than just wrestle. He does jiu-jitsu. You don't really see Ryan Bader pulling off a lot of jiu-jitsu submissions. So you got to look at it that way. I think Ryan Bader has the knockout power, but he's just a traditional boxer and wrestler. He doesn't do anything that's like out of the wall crazy. Like, oh my God, did you see him do that? No, you don't really see that when you see this guy compete. You just see typical boxing, kind of like Tito Ortiz. That's just my opinion. I think he does more like a Tito Ortiz fight himself. So I'm gonna say Ryan Bader is gonna win by knockout, but I'm not gonna be surprised if Phil Davis wins. But like I said, we are gonna be talking about the Anderson Silva fight coming up on January 30th or 31st. And that is probably one of the most exciting fights I've ever wanted to see in a very, very long time. I was talking about this fight like 2 years ago that this fight should happen. And you got Tyrone Woodley on this card. You even got Joe Lozon, which Joe Lozon always puts on an exciting fight. And I don't know, what do you guys think of this fight, really? Do you think Nick Diaz has the ability to outstrike Anderson Silva, or do you think he has the ability to submit Anderson? Anderson is a very underrated Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu game. So does Nick Diaz. I don't think Nick Diaz has looked at one of those guys that is going to submit somebody. He's looked at it as he's going to throw down and box. And look at these dudes' records. Anderson Silva is 33-6-0 with 67% by knockout, 12% by going to the by submission, and 21 by the judge's decision. And they're very similar because, look, Nick Diaz is 48% by knockout, 33% by submission, and 22% by going to the judge's scoring card. And they're both very similar, long, lengthy guys. Anderson Silva might be a heavier guy, more versatile striker with his kicks and knees and elbows, while Nick Diaz does more boxing, not a lot of leg kicks, but he can submit you, and he does pitter-patter punches, like Joe Rogan says, that he throws about 50%, and they don't hurt all that well, but after he throws like 200 or 300 punches on you, it will start to just dominate you, because in reality, guys, throwing 30, 40 punches in a row on somebody is going to gas him out. But Anderson Silva is coming off a broken leg injury, losing twice to Chris Weidman, and they are saying that if Anderson Silva wins, he will get a title shot. So do you think if Nick Diaz wins, he deserves a title shot? Because Nick Diaz is a money-making dude. He talks the talk and backs it up. He's one of those dudes who really wants to go out there and kick your ass, and I think he'll be talking shit in the cage. I don't know if Anderson Silva will be overwhelmed by that or just kind of like, wait, what the hell is going on here? But Nick Diaz has the ability to win this fight. I've always said that. I always said Nick Diaz has the ability to win this fight because he is 11-2 in his last 13 fights. That is a crazy record. And Anderson Silva is 16-2 in his last 18 fights. So those two dudes have annihilated everybody from Paul Daly to BJ Penn to Robbie Lawler to Frank Shamrock. And you got to look at what Anderson Silva's done. He's beaten the top pound-per-pound fighters in the world. Yushin Okami, Chael Sonnen twice, Dan Henderson, Damian Maia, Patrick Cote. He's beaten Vitor Belfort, Stephan Bonner. Chris Weidman was the only guy that can beat him. So my personal opinion is this is going to be one of the best fights ever. Is it a super fight? I think it's one of the best fights that the UFC should have been putting on years ago when Anderson Silva was in his prime and Nick Diaz was a champion in the Strikeforce. I really think that's when they should have took this fight and made it happen, because nowadays, you could say, well, Anderson Silva's out of his prime, and you can say, well, Nick Diaz is not the fighter he once was. But Nick Diaz is only 31 years old. And if you look at Anderson Silva, he's in his 40s. So that's a big difference. And Anderson Silva is on the decline of his career. That's to be said. But Anderson Silva, if he wins, will get a title shot against Chris Weidman. And do you think he can beat Chris Weidman, to be honest? I think he's got to be very aggressive with Nick Diaz to win this fight, because Nick Diaz will always come forward and box you up. And it's kind of cool that Nick Diaz is being very respectful and Anderson Silva is being very respectful. They're like, hey, Nick Diaz basically says he has nothing to say about his opponent. He just wants to go out there and compete. And I think these are the fights that people want to see. People that go out there and fucking compete and just throw down. There's nothing really there for it. It's not like, oh, they're fighting for a title or they're fighting for the number one contender spot. It's just two guys who want to go out there and put on an exciting fight. Nick Diaz is one of my favorite fighters of all time. Anderson Silva is one of my favorite fighters. I did lose interest in Anderson Silva when he started doing that bobbing and weaving and dancing around and clowning. But me personally, I think it's going to be a hell of a fight card. I really think the Miesha Tate fight should be on. Miesha Tate versus Sarah McMahon should be on the pay-per-view and not on the prelims, because you got Thiago Alves versus Jordan Mean. I don't even know who that is. That guy shouldn't even be on the main card. You should actually have Miesha Tate versus Sarah McMahon. I mean, two hot chicks thrown down, that's always something exciting. But like I said, Joe Lozon will be fighting on that fight card. And Joe Lozon is 24-10. And Joe Lozon is one of my favorite fighters of all time, just because he goes out there and throws down and does what he does. He's on a 2-fight winning streak, and he doesn't back down. He's one of the most exciting fighters in the MMA world. He's the typical MMA fighter that says, hey, I want to get paid. I'm going to go out there and fuck fools up and do what I have to do to win. And I want to say one thing. One dude just commented my YouTube channel saying I have really good MMA, a really good MMA channel. And I'm going to look at the comments right now and find who that was. It is Straight Hick is the dude's username, and he says, just thought I would say that you have a good MMA channel. You have a good insight on MMA. I really hope Conor McGregor wins. Not a big fan of Aldo. I think guys in his division are going to get smashed. So, Straight Hick, I'm shouting you out, and I've got to say this. The reason why I'm a big MMA fan, it's the closest thing to a real fight. And me personally, I've been a fan of MMA since like 1996, when I had to go to the video store and watch them on videotape, because that's the only way you can watch these. So thanks for watching another MMA Breakdown podcast. Let me know of anything I talked about today. Do you guys think Anderson Silva will just mop the floor with Anderson, or will it be a very close back and forth fight going to a judge's decision? And I think if this fight goes to a judge's decision and Nick Diaz doesn't win, this might be the last fight for Nick, because he's getting sick and tired of losing. And I can understand that. And Nick Diaz, I think, has the ability to win. So what do you guys think? Nick is going to beat Nate, or Nick is going to beat Anderson, or is Anderson just going to beat Nick convincingly? And Alex Gustafsson versus Rumble Johnson. I'm going for Alex Gustafsson, but I'm not going to be surprised if he gets knocked out in the first round, because everybody says, when you talk to other MMA insiders or just people who are a fan of the sports, they say they're very surprised how fast Rumble Johnson is. He kind of is like a Brock Lesnar. He's very quick, just gets across and boxes you up. And he has very similar style to Brock Lesnar, like his body style. And I'm still surprised this dude walks 40 and still would cut down to 170. That was bad. He was a beast at 170. But with that being said, I will definitely talk to you guys in the next MMA Breakdown podcast. Thanks for watching. Now get that mic on my face. Like I said, guys, I do have the questions and post open. So post any questions in the podcast, in the description box, or in the comment section, and I'll definitely answer them. And if you guys want, I can do these more often so we can go live and have you guys interact, because I'm always down for you guys to interact and do it live, so you guys can ask me questions, and it would make the podcast just more enjoyable than just me rambling off the top of my dome, because I am a big, crazy MMA fan. And another MMA podcast I like is the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, Kimbo Slice has signed a contract to fight in Bellator. And it's been 5 years since Kimbo Slice has fought in MMA. He's been doing boxing where he's been boxing fools up. And some of these fights look like they've been fixed. I don't know if it's true. A lot of people saying MMA, he was just fighting these fixed fights. But with that being said, Kimbo Slice is now back in Bellator, back in the MMA arena. Do you guys think he's going to do good? He wants to fight Seth Pep. I can't even think of the dude's name. The guy who beat him in Elite XC. And like I said, he was doing okay when he was training with Boss Rutan. He was doing pretty good. He is 40 years old, and he is a decently good boxer. But a lot of people are just going to shoot in and take him down because they don't want to stand and bang with him. But with that being said, I will definitely talk to you guys next time. Let me know, do you think it's a good thing that Bellator did sign Kimbo Slice, or are they just doing it because they need ratings to compete with the UFC? And Jake Shields won his second fight in World Series of Fighting. So World Series of Fighting are getting a lot of fighters that are getting cut by the UFC. So they're building up the roster. You guys better check out that. They're always free on NBC Sports. You guys got to check it out. That is a good organization. They put on great fights. They kind of remind me of the WEC, a smaller cage with exciting fights. Always good. See you guys soon. Bye-bye.